Did you know there are approximately 1.75 million species in the world? And according to National Geographic, there are still undiscovered species that may never be found. Biodiversity is a variety of life found across Earth or within a specific area. Many assume this only consists of plants and animals. However, it can range from huge redwood trees all the way down to a single cell algae on a rock. So when I took a biology class in junior high and high school, I loved it and immediately wanted to learn more about how all species work together to survive. So today I will be discussing what biodiversity is in the different ecosystems, what the consequences of the loss of biodiversity would be, and what we can do as humans to prevent that decline and keep our Earth healthy. So now that I've explained the topic of today, I will now begin to discuss what biodiversity really is. Biodiversity is defined as the totality of genes in the species. It is also estimated that 86% of species have not been discovered, and there are three different types of diversity: genetic, species, and ecosystem diversity. All forms of life are created of genes, which are specific characteristics and traits. This allows species to adapt to environmental changes and prevent themselves from getting viruses. However, when cross-pollination and breeding occurs, this causes a variety of genes, creating the possibility of them all dying off. Species diversity is the number of different species coexisting within an ecosystem. This is also where the common food chain lies, because species diversity has a chain effect. So the more species equals a more stable ecosystem, essentially. Ecosystem diversity looks at the different ecosystems in the world, which can include mountain zones, suburbs, and grasslands. Since I've explained in detail what biodiversity is, I will now explain the consequences of loss from biodiversity. There has been a significant decline in biodiversity, and it is mainly because of human actions, such as deforestation, pollution, and overpopulation. If we continue to do this, we will experience a huge loss. Without biodiversity, there will be a large increase in virus spread because of climate change, and tropical infections will then move to temperate regions, causing those viruses to go down to humans because there will be a loss of biodiversity, essentially. Bees are also the key component to survival because they produce 90% of our food today from fruits, vegetables, crops, and nuts. So without bees, we'd have close to little or no food. So after discussing the consequences of biodiversity, I will now explain what we can do as humans to prevent the loss and decline of biodiversity altogether. Without biodiversity, we'd have an extremely hard time to survive. However, there are things that we can do to prevent this from happening and keep our Earth healthy. The first one is we can begin to recycle our common items that are made of paper, metal, and plastic. So instead of throwing them in the garbage can, we can throw them in the recycle bin. Another way we can prevent it is buying items that are already made from recyclable material. The second way is we can save bees by banning pesticides that can harm them. And there was a study done by biologists where they found over 150 chemicals from pesticides within the pollen contaminating all the potential food. So if we restore ecological agriculture, this will restore the soil and prevent from future pesticides going in the plants. We also must reduce climate change, and we can do this by limiting our use of fossil fuels and start adapting to natural products. So now that I've discussed with you what we can do to prevent the decline of biodiversity, I will now wrap things up. Biodiversity is an essential part of all our existences. Today I've discussed what biodiversity is and specific ecosystems, what life would be like without biodiversity, and what we can do as humans to keep our Earth healthy. Biodiversity is important to humans and all other species in many ways. And however, if we continue to treat it like we are right now, we will experience a huge loss and continue to abuse all the species that keep us alive, such as bees. So I hope that you learned something from my speech today, and thank you for listening.